Alright, YouTube. Hopefully you've caught up. No. Are you... Good. Okay. There we go. Now we're live. Let me pop out chat so I can see things. And we are ready to go.
Okay.
YouTube takes forever to catch up to OBS when it comes to this kind of thing. Anyway. Hopefully people watching can hear us. Haven't gotten the notification that we're live yet, but YouTube, in its infinite wisdom and hatred of people having opinions, may just be suppressing us. Or we're not live. Who knows? Doesn't say we're live.
I got us live.
Okay.
At least on my end, it says we're live.
Okay, but I don't, so. My channel says we're live, but I don't have the, I didn't have the notification pop up on my feed, so. Alright, so. Hello everyone and welcome to Filthy Casuals. We begin, as always, with technical difficulties. And I am drinking the most psychotic of tea. One could call it twisted.
Yeah. And I'm not really drinking anything tonight. Didn't really have much time to set up.
Anyway.
I kind of fell asleep a few minutes before we started.
I'm sorry to wake you up then. And present you with this horrid vision.
Oh Lord.
Anyway. Shall we talk about...
Well.
Alright. So, there was a reason for no academic alehouse last night, and that I came home and promptly ate dinner, got ready, and passed the fuck out. I was super tired. Tonight I am pushing through, and I feel like I'm coming down with something, so what we do for content. Anyway, Dungeons and Dragons has put out the official D&D website, Wizards of the Coast, have put out a lovely little article titled Diversity and Dungeons and Dragons.
Yep.
And we will be reading through it along with the original article that pretty much led to this. This is from comicbook.com. Why Orcs are Problematic in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh God.
We will be reading through both.
Did they seriously put problematic as the title?
Yes.
That word just feels like a meme at this point.
Either way. We will be reading through both and giving our expert opinions as a dungeon master of, almost 5 years now.
And I did DM for one campaign.
Yeah. So let's just say we have things to say, and someone who spends his free time, listening to D&D lore videos and shit like that.
Oh yeah, you'll definitely have more to say about it than me then.
I have opinions. But that's why we started this podcast.
Yes.
Anyway, so we will be going live let's begin with the article. Well, so this is on the official Dungeons and Dragons website. Article Diversity and Dungeons and Dragons. It begins as such. Dungeons and Dragons teaches that diversity is strength. For only a diverse group of adventurers can overcome the many challenges a D&D story presents. In that spirit, making D&D as welcoming and inclusive as possible has moved to the forefront of our priorities over the past 6 years. That is absolutely not true. I will explain why. Ideally, like ideally you have players play various classes and such that you end up having a healer, a DPS, a tank, things like that. But you also have people that only want to play one class, and you have multiples of those people. So, or you have campaigns that are specifically designed to be rogue, to be one class. Like someone could come up with a all druid campaign or an all rogue campaign. And it is then the DM's job to present that group if if the group if the group is just a general purpose group and says, "Hey, we all want to play rogue." Sure, why not? Sure, why not? Go for it. And we're not going to stop you. I, the DM, am not going to stop you. You will have to overcome the various challenges of that. You will have to overcome the various challenges of that with your wits and your roleplay. That makes a campaign interesting. Yes, having a diverse group of adventurers is very much
Very standard.
very standard, but not necessary. Like, and personally, I think it's more interesting when you have that limitation. Like right now, myself and one of my roommates are in a two-person campaign. I'm DMing and playing a character, and she is also a character. So as the DM, I have to put down. Not only do I have to put down encounters, here's that characters of their level in a larger party would be have no problem addressing, but I also will have but that both of them all but both characters also have to overcome challenges that they're not necessarily equipped for. For example, if they want to sneak into somewhere, well, one of them's a wizard and one of them's a paladin. The paladin's not exactly built geared out for stealth, but the wizard might be able to turn him invisible, well, to get it through. Like they and so and so things are and so the challenge is overcome or or things like that. Like it's not just, oh, we need all these roles filled, otherwise we won't be able to hit all the thing. We won't be able to do things. And the dice play a role in that too. Like if you don't roll well, oh well, you didn't overcome the challenge.
Yes, yes. Anybody planning on getting into D&D, make sure you buy multiple sets of dice, because the dice you buy might suck.
It's very true.
Because my dice are horrible.
My dice don't love me either. Meanwhile, Ryan.
Yeah, yes. Ryan's D20 is fucking it's like god
It
tier.
loves him. It loves him.
Yes,
And I don't know why.
he was the best character in my campaign.
Anyway, we'd like to.
Meanwhile, all the characters I played as during my campaign were all shits.
I know that feeling. We'd like to share with you what we've been doing and what we plan to do in the future to address legacy D&D content that does not reflect who we are today. Ignore it. Move on. Legacy D&D content isn't exactly like horrifying. We recognize doing this isn't about getting to a place where we can rest on our laurels, but continuing to head in the right direction. Okay, what's the right direction? Define the right direction. Is it where your game is no longer profitable, or is it where you produce modules that don't sell or books that don't sell because people go with a baseline? People only buy the baseline and basically work their own campaigns.
It's all about being as inoffensive as possible. That's the right direction. It doesn't matter if it's at the expense of your own sales.
We feel that being transparent about it is the best way to let our community help us continue to calibrate our efforts. One of the explicit design goals of 5th edition D&D is to depict humanity in all its beautiful diversity by depicting characters who represent an array of ethnicities, gender identities, sexual orientations, and beliefs.
Well, that would explain why the player's handbook has a black female representing the human race. I did I kind of thought it sounded a little woke, but I didn't think too much of it. But
Because
after
no
that,
one
after
cares.
yeah, but after rereading this, now I can't really look at that without
Yeah,
thinking this is woke shit.
huh. Maybe they put the black character in there just for diversity points. Interesting. Like originally, oh, the fighter's a black male. Moving on. Anyway, we want everyone to feel at home around the game table and to see positive reflections of themselves within our product. Human in D&D means everyone, not just fantasy versions of Northern Europeans, and the D&D community is now more diverse than it's ever been. Do you even read? Do you even lift? Do you even know D&D, bro? Like, people set their campaigns wherever the fuck they want.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really have much of a response to that
Just
because I
because
mean,
you just because the D&D home campaign, like the D&D modules and shit take place in what is ostensibly medieval Europe with magic doesn't mean there's by and large stark contrasts to the population and how people treat one another. And who cares how in-game lore is treated? Someone, if they don't like it, the DM can just be like, "Oh, okay, that's not something I want in my game." Boom, it's gone. And as for people feeling at home around the game table, well, there are always going to be assholes. You can't escape them. They're always going to be there. That's why D&D horror stories exists. Like there's always going to be the Skyrim player. There's always going to be the Mary Sue. Ooh, there's always going to be the creepy DM or the creepy player who hits on other people.
that reminds me of one of my campaign I did one time.
Anyway, but yes, that's a thing. Like no one cares if it's fantasy versions of Northern Europeans. You gave them the tools to set their campaign and create their own world. Hell, they can set it in fucking Africa if they want to. Ooh, like there's D&D set in the Old West. D&D set in I don't know, Asia in feudal Japan. Like yeah, act like the only thing is in existence for D&D is the baseline game and is the baseline main campaign and everyone plays it. Yeah, act like this is a video game, really.
All right, well, on to the juicier part.
Throughout the 50-year history of D&D, some of the peoples in the game, orcs and drow being two of the prime examples, have been characterized as monstrous and evil, using descriptions that are painfully reminiscent of how real-world ethnic groups have been and continue to be degenerated,
Okay,
denigrated. That is
okay, hold on. Okay, I have the D&D Fifth Edition Monster Manual. So let's see what it actually says about the Drow and the Orcs.
I don't
Let's
think
see.
it has anything on the drow. I know it has stuff on the orcs.
Let's see here. Let's see. Tens of thousands of years ago, the elves were divided with those of benevolent disposition, battling those that were selfish and cruel. The war among elven kind ended with the good elves, and good elves banished their malevolent kin to the subterranean depths here in the land. Da, da, da. Yeah, at least in the very introduction, no, I don't see any parallels to modern day ethnic groups. They're just simply a group of elves that went evil, and then yeah, they just kind of
Shall
lost
we?
a battle. Lost a battle against it. Lost a battle against the elves that stayed good.
So it
And
actually goes deeper than that, and D&D lore basically says that in old times, the elves were like formless creatures, creatures without form, basically. This is long ago, before like the before first edition. The elves were creatures that had no form. But when they came, but um, one of the gods, I can't remember his name for the life of me, basically said, "All right, I want companions." So he elevated some of the elves to be his companions. One of those elves, who would become Lolth, the demon queen that rules the Drow, she basically said, "Why don't y'all stay to a permanent form?" And so they became the Drow. So they became the Drow. And what happened was the few the main elf god didn't like that, because when the elves took on permanent forms, it limited him to his own permanent form. So basically, he kicked every elf out of elf heaven, and so now normal elves, trance. When they trance, they relive. When they trance when they're children, they relive memories of like elf heaven. They know what they're missing out on, essentially. When But the Drow, because they followed Lolth, and Lolth tried to kill the main god of the elves, so he threw her into the abyss. He basically said, "All right, y'all are barred from elf heaven. Y'all can't get in. Y'all can't get in for shit." And there were several gods that followed Lolth to the abyss. This one of whom, Iliastrahi, is the Drow goddess of the moon, and she's chaotic good. Like when the Drow go to the surface to raid people, she calls to them. She's like, "Be good. Like, look, y'all don't have to be Lolth." But ironically enough, Lolth societies are matriarchal. Like, they're led by women. They're led by priestesses of Lolth. And yes, and so they basically became uh basically they took the elven superiority complex that all elves have and took it to its logical extreme. They don't consider any other they consider Lolth basically demands sacrifice and slave labor, and so they provide it because Lolth protects them. Like, that's the Drow story. It makes them sympathetic. Like, you understand, it doesn't excuse their actions, but it makes them sympathetic. They've quite literally been locked out of heaven after living there for centuries.
all right, and how about the orcs? I've also
I've got
got
it
the
pulled up right now.
yeah, yeah, and I've got the book open too.
Orcs are savage raiders and pillagers with stooped postures, low foreheads, and piggish faces with prominent lower canines that resemble tusks.
Just like real ethnic groups, apparently.
Oh, yeah. Totally. I can totally draw the connection between let's see, stooped postured, low foreheaded, piggish faced beings with a prominent underbite. Hmm. I cannot think of what what possible ethnic group these could be drawing parallel to. No, quite literally. I'm not being sarcastic at all. Like, what ethnic group are we referring to here? Are you saying black people look like orcs, D&D? That would be
Well,
somewhat ironic because I don't think anyone drew that connection.
yeah, I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from. Not that the orcs are black people per se, just the idea that the entire race is depicted as being evil and or malicious.
Yeah, but they don't have to be. In Oberon, the orcs are pretty civilized,
Yeah,
all things
exactly.
considered.
Exactly. Like
Like they don't.
that's the basic outline of D&D. You don't have to follow it. Even when I did my D&D campaign, I made it so the orcs were simply very territorial. They weren't evil per se. They just didn't like outsiders.
In my campaign, they're neutral at best. Like, yeah, they pillage and raid, but they're they also equally are. They also they pillage and they raid settlements and pillage stuff, but so too do they like create merchant caravans with goods and shit. Like just depends on where you are in the world. Like
Yeah, and also it just like the idea of orcs being evil, like that's a fairly common trope throughout fantasy, but
yeah, exactly.
it depends like on the context. Like does it make sense in the respective lores? Because I mean, like in like Lord of the Rings, it makes sense why the orcs are evil because the original orcs were elves that were captured and they had their minds and bodies corrupted by dark magic.
Yeah,
And
and
then
in D&D, they're literally from another planet. They're literally from another universe, I think.
that sounds like the orcs from Warcraft.
Yeah, they are. I think that's where Warcraft drew the inspiration.
Yeah, and then Elder Scrolls is also more akin to Tolkien, where they were started out as elves that got turned into made more monstrous.
Yeah, but even
But
then, they're not evil. Even then, orcs have just as much capability of being evil as any other race in Elder Scrolls or in any fantasy setting. Like even in Warcraft, you could argue that there's probably good. I think there are good orcs.
yeah, yeah,
I'm not
it's fine.
I'm not very familiar with Warcraft lore.
Me neither.
I know in the movie one of
Yeah.
the main characters he was a pretty cool guy.
Mhm.
He was an orc and he was a pretty cool guy. He just wanted to protect his family and like find a place for them to live.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that there's not a right or wrong way to portray orcs.
Exactly. And
You
the
can
fact
portray you can portray them as being an actual like race of people, or just portray them as monsters. They're just monsters, simple as that. Like
hell, and
I
you could
myself,
do this with any race, really. You could describe the elves as being haughty and arrogant to the point where they don't consider the lives of the lesser lived races to be worth anything. So they either enslave them, they belittle them, and they don't consider them to be on their level. Well, behold, I've just turned every elf evil. Well, it's all up to the interpretation of the DM it's all up to the interpretation of the storyteller. Like the fact that
yeah,
D&D, the base, the game that basically says is do here is a system for you to work in and tell whatever story you want. Like I have the uh DM I have the Dungeon Master's Guide somewhere, not on hand. But I have the Dungeon Master's Guide and it tells you like, okay, here's how you create NPCs. Here's how you create your world. Here's how you create different planes of existence. Why would you give me those tools, me as a storyteller, as a DM, those tools in order in and act as if I'm going to point at this race, just pick a race and say, oh, this is what they are like. For example, goblins. Goblins are honestly more interesting because they can be semi good. Like they can be neutral. Well, like making races more interesting isn't a bad thing. No, I don't know anyone that would pigeonhole a race like that to that point, unless they just needed a villain of the week. In which case, no one's going to point and say, you just made orcs evil. That's racist because black people are orcs. Because orcs are black people. I
Yeah,
didn't draw that connection, D&D. You did.
and like I said before, I can see where they're coming from with the whole, like I said, with the idea of just an entire race being like vilifying an entire race of people, but to go so far as to say that orcs are portraying orcs as being evil is just like modern day racial profiling. Yeah, you're looking way too deep into it.
You're drawing a connection with a red string on a board full of other red strings.
Yeah, I wonder how many people I can piss off with my book series, since I also tackle racism with with fantasy creatures. However, I also have it so that the that I guess I kind of push the idea that yeah, stereotyping is horrible, but stereotypes are based on truth. So like in my series, like goblins get racially discriminated against. However, a lot of tribal goblins pretty much live up to the very stereotype.
All right.
So when it comes to goblins that actually want to interact with humans, they get a bad rap because of the other or because of the bad goblins.
Shall we read uh what they're going to improve?
You mean the part where they basically adopt the philosophy of syndrome?
Yes.
All right, let's do this.
Here's what we're going to improve. We present orcs and drow in a new light in two of our most recent books, Eberron, Rise from the Last War, and Explorer's Guide to Wildmount. In those books, orcs and drow are just as morally and culturally complex as other peoples. Well, the drow were already morally and culturally complex. Like
Yeah.
they,
So
their society is that their entire society, if just baseline drow, is based on hierarchy, intrigue and hierarchy. Evil, yes, absolutely. But you can still go into a drow settlement, say, look, if you do this favor for me, I will help you kill this person above you in the hierarchy.
yeah. So is it just
That's
been?
that's
Oh, go
pretty
on.
morally complex. That's pretty culturally complex. Not necessarily morally complex, but you're not going to go to demons. You're not going to go to devils and say, I wish you to be morally complex.
Yeah. So does make you wonder: is this exclusively for orcs and drow, or do they also try to work in goblins, ogres, oni, uh, demons, devils?
Yeah, that's a good
Other
question.
other like monstrous races, Grimlock,
Lizard
um,
folk.
lizard folk. Hell, dragons. Like
Oh,
like
yeah.
wonder if there'll ever be controversy about the dragons because like the metallic dragons are all good and the colored dragons are all evil. With
Yeah.
black dragons are the most evil and white dragons are the most like primal.
But like orcs and drow are culturally complex. They have even at baseline. Like at the baseline, the orcs live in a might makes right society, and that's interesting. There's nothing wrong with that. Right? And they're also deeply religious. Like they worship a god. They worship Grumish, the god of the orcs.
Grumish.
Yes, Grumish.
It almost makes me think of a certain stop motion animation dog.
Grommet?
Yes.
Hmm. But
Never mind.
they
Bad
worship
joke.
Grummish, and like there's not like look, there's nothing wrong with like having evil races. There's nothing wrong with having races that are morally abhorrent to most people. There's nothing wrong with that. And besides, the Guide to Wildmount is Matt Mercer's creation, and it's of his own world. He could have represented the Drow however the fuck he wanted. Just pointing that out, wizards. Hey, D&D. That Explorer's Guide to Wildmount, that thing you're praising as, oh, look what we did. That's a different world. The Drow could have had the Drow in Matthew Mercer's world could have had an entirely different history than the ones on Abertoral. Uh, on Toral. Like you're talking about two different universes here. Eberron and Wildmount exist in as the creations of two different people who decided to do different things with the source material. We will continue that approach in future books, portraying all the peoples of D&D in relatable ways and making it clear that they are as free as humans to decide who they are and what they do. Yeah,
You
but
could already do that without the need of expanded material.
further,
It,
okay, what if a human grows up in a city full of thieves? Do you not think that person would view life as, well, expendable, as a resource to use, at other people as a resource to use, as like it's like they don't understand that these were already morally and culturally complex peoples. It's like they don't understand. And yes, humans are absolutely free to choose whatever they like. So are elves. So are elves. So are dwarves. Like yeah, your character can be from wherever and choose whatever. But you can't look at every race and look at the player characters and say, "Oh, because most of our player characters are good, everybody has to have the opportunity to do good." That's not how it works. That's not how it works. Most player characters are actually like neutral at best. But even still, making them as free as humans is like saying humans aren't capable of evil in the world of D&D. Like there's no liches that used to be human. And by the way, the process for involving becoming a lich, according to D&D lore, involves killing a baby with a phase spider. Straight up, you have to murder a baby if you want to become a lich. There was also a point in D&D lore where a human was so arrogant, he decided to assume the mantle of a god, and it killed his entire civilization. There's also 3 humans that became gods, and one of them is the god of murder. Like, humans are capable of evil just as much as any other race. But
I
humans
mean,
don't get projected as evil because by and large, they're short-lived and they don't have the same societal constructs around them. And even if they are, so what? Humans decide that humans grow up under an oppressive rule. Well, so a human child grows up without the influence of anyone good in his life. He sees people as expendable. He sees money as a resource to get what he wants. He is perfect. He is absolutely evil. Well, that is what happens in Orc society, in fucking Drow society. Drow and Orcs do not get born evil, are not born evil, unlike devils and demons. They are not born evil, they become evil because of the society they grow up in. And that is culturally complex. Like, there's nothing wrong with a society that basically forces people to choose evil.
Yeah, just I find this last sentence weird. Just saying that, making it clear that they are as free as humans. Like, you can already decide that on your own. You don't need another. You don't need a book to tell you so.
Exactly.
If you want to portray them as portray the Drow as being mostly good or bad, that's entirely up to you or the player playing as the Drow.
When every D&D book is reprinted, so you're going to reprint every module that's come out so far and every source book. Fuck off. No, I already paid too much money for this shit. You're not getting it again. We have an opportunity to correct errors that we and or the broader D&D community discovered in that book. Each year we use those opportunities to fix a variety of things, including errors in judgment. Recent reprintings of Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd, for example, we changed text that was racially insensitive. Those
What was
reprints have already been printed and will be available in the months ahead.
what was racially insensitive about it?
I don't know. We will continue this process, reviewing each book as it comes up for a reprint and fixing such errors as they are present, where they are present. So, in the most recent run of Tomb of Annihilation and Curse of Strahd, they changed some of the text. Text that the DM could have easily skipped over, text that could have been irrelevant, text that could have provided more information on the world. Well, it doesn't matter. They're basically altering fluff. Because I'll be honest, when I look at a D&D monster or monstrous race, when I look at them, I don't care what they do, what their society is. I'm going to come up with that shit. I need their stat block. That's it. And by and large, the modules like Curse of Strahd or Tomb of Annihilation have stat blocks for the various characters that are inside them. And they'll have fluff text and descriptions of what they look like, but who cares about that? You can describe them however you want. Strahd is you see as Strahd reveals himself for the first time to the party. Behold, Strahd, the fabulous peacocking gay vampire. He looks like Edward Cullen. Strahd looks like Edward Cullen. Behold. Done. And, like, they literally could have made any number. Like, a DM can literally make anything look like anything, and they act like, oh, because his text was supposedly I'm absolutely sure through a certain lens that the text was racially insensitive. Excuse me. They have to reprint the whole book. They have to change it. Later this year, we will release a product, not yet announced, that offers a way for a player to customize their character's origin, including the option to change the ability score increases that come from being an elf, a dwarf, or one of these many other playable folk. This option emphasizes that each person in the game is an individual with capabilities of their own. What the fuck?
So yeah, just in other words, just completely remove all the individual racial perks. On one hand, I understand. I get the idea of trying to incorporate more freedom, but on the other hand, like no,
No,
that's not how it
why
works.
would you do that? It removes the uniqueness of playing an elf, a dwarf. It, it removes the uniqueness of playing those people.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
the reason humans get a +1 to everything is because they are literally so versatile. They are short-lived. They are the shortest-lived race in the entirety of D&D, of the D&D playable characters, excluding monsters. Excluding monstrous races, humans are the shortest lived, and maybe half orcs. Half orcs, I think, live shorter.
yeah,
But
I think so.
humans are inherently versatile. Well, are inherently versatile. They're not going to be the strongest character. That's most likely going to be a Goliath with giant hair who has giant heritage, or an orc, or a half orc, or even hell, an orc, because they're biologically driven to be stronger. Like,
Yeah, I mean, this.
it,
I
it
mean, yeah,
if you do this kind of thing, it removes the uniqueness of being that character, of being that race.
yeah. It's like the people making this that have never actually played any kind of like turn-based RPG game before. I mean, D&D is like the ancestor of like turn-based RPG video games. If you played any one of those games, you know that each character that you play as in a party has a abilities unique to them. And that's pretty much what this is.
Yeah, exactly. Like, for example, a dwarf gets poison resistant. Dwarves get poison resistance and things like that, which makes sense because they primarily live underground, and exposure to toxic gases and any number of other things in the any number of other or sediments and shit that would flow through their lungs.
Yeah, and I mean, and
So it
just like
makes sense that they
yeah,
would be their
and
lungs
oh
and shit would be stronger. Their
yeah,
constitution would be stronger.
okay, yeah, and also just having it so each race has different perks makes you want to take play as each different race because you want you because it gives a different playing experience.
Yeah, exactly. So if I so with this, if I play an elf and I can just change whatever ability score I want, what's the point in playing an elf? I might as well play a human. There's nothing unique about playing an elf. Now, with that, there's nothing unique about playing a dwarf. But this product hasn't been announced yet, so these are just like assuming they basically say, "Hey, but they basically say, "Oh, you can change how your origin determines how your ability score or gets your ability score increases and stuff." But I would say a good DM would go through the backgrounds presented in Volo's guide, in Xanathar's Guide to Everything, and the player's handbook, and be like, "Sure, you can have a +1 in this, or you can." Would change how ability scores, how the ability scores is evened out if that was how they wanted to play it. But with this, it's just like, oh, because your character has this origin, they don't get that inherent racial ability. Which, by the way, the ability scores of the races are biological. Like, the reason human. All right, let's go through the races of the basic 9 races, shall we?
Let's.
I have. Hold on. Let me pull up the player's handbook right here. I do have a working copy, but it's in the other room, and I don't want to just fucking. leave y'all. That would be rude. Trying to get to the first.
And
All right.
I have the manual book in my hands right now.
All right. So the first race is the dwarves. Your constitution increases by 2. That's it. That's all you get. But if you choose a specific, there's other dwarves that you can add, which would increase your wisdom score. Or your strength. Like there are sub races that, because of where they live. Oh, that's unfortunate, John Rice. I hope you figure it out. Oh, do catch the replay though. Thank you. Like for example, a hill dwarf, your wisdom score increases by 2, by 1, and along with your constitution. Like it makes sense for dwarves to have stronger constitution than most other races because they live underground. They're exposed to any number of toxic fumes or chemicals. Those are any number of things. It makes sense for them to have that sort of physical toughness because they're a forge and mining society kind of thing. Like they're a hardworking, traditional society. Like even females would have that sort of strong constitution. And for hill dwarves, hers would have like I don't know actually. I couldn't tell you about the sub races, but strength score increasing makes sense because you're a mountain dwarf. You live in the mountains. You live in the mountains. I don't know about the wisdom scoring. The next is the elves, and they get dexterity increased by 2. They get a dexterity increase by 2. And the dexterity increase makes sense because elves are supposed to be they're they have fey ancestry. They're supposed to be sort of these ethereal beings that can move, that basically float across terrain.
Yeah,
Like
yeah. So yeah, basically, in a nutshell, just like there's reasons why each race has these perks, and also just to get rid of that also just means that it takes away a lot of like strategy and planning ahead with the game.
Yeah. And it also removes the uniqueness of being that character. For example, uh one of the characters in my current campaign, she's a gnome. She's a forest gnome. She chose that gnome because she chose that type of gnome because it's specialized in they specialized in illusion magic, but B, she likes the idea of being a gnome. She liked the idea that the forest gnomes presented to her, or the idea of that race, and there's nothing wrong with that. But inherently, the sort of thing they're talking about this would basically remove that sort of uniqueness.
Yeah, remember, kids, when everyone is super, no one is.
The Curse of Strahd included a people known as the Vistani, and featured the Vistani heroine Esmeralda. Regrettably, their description echoes some stereotypes associated with the Romani people in the real world. To rectify that, we've not only made changes to the Cursed Strahd, but 2 upcoming books. We will also show working with the Romani consulate, the Vistani in a way that doesn't rely on reductive tropes.
Just don't give the Romani any change.
Because
I'm kidding.
Because showing a people that have a staunch tradition of nomadic heritage, or inherent cultural things that, or inherent cultural, well, they're gypsy basically. The Vistani are
Yeah.
gypsies.
Yeah. So yeah. So I don't condone discrimination against Romani people. Like I myself am part Romanian, but yeah. That being said, that there is like I went to Italy back or a few years back, and yeah, the big cities do have a problem with a lot of gypsies, like pretty much like conning you into giving them change. Like they'll pretend to be old beggars or pretend to be crippled. Like yeah, a lot of them will try to scam you for money. Of course, it's not to say all of them do, but
But even still, who
there are
cares?
individuals that do. Just saying. Stereotypes, as bad as they are still based on truth.
Stereotypes exist for a reason.
Exactly.
Like, but who cares? It's a depiction of a gypsy race in D&D. Of a gypsy race that can see the fucking future, by the way. They have their own unique heritage and cultural influence. Like, why do we need to pretend like, oh, because they are gypsies and people treat them badly, it, like it they act as if nobody can be treated poorly by anyone else in the game,
Except for white people.
in the flavor text of D&D. Like, yeah, the Vistani are gypsies. So what? People don't trust them because there are con artists among them. Yeah, that makes sense. Since they live on the road. They're not necessarily merchants, but they live on the road, so they have a hard life. So they try to get money where they can. We receive valuable insights from sensitivity readers on 2 of our recent books. We are incorporating sensitivity readers into our creative process, and we will continue to reach out to experts in various fields to help us identify our blind spots.
Yeah. Remember, when you try to please everybody, you end up pleasing nobody.
We are proactively seeking new diverse talent to join our staff and our pool of freelance writers and artists. We've brought in contributors to reflect the beautiful diversity of the D&D community work on books coming.
Okay. So why does this all have to be 5th edition? Why can't all this SJW shit just be on 6th edition? Let's just see how well let's see how well 6E how well 6E plans out with all these changes. Just leave 5E alone to try to experiment with the next edition, see what happens.
Because the next edition's at least 5 years away.
Is that how it works?
Generally. I think 4th edition came out late 90s, early 2000s. I don't know. This part of our work will never end. We know that every day someone finds the courage to voice their truth. Listen, we're here to listen. We are eternally grateful for the ongoing dialogue with the D&D community, and we look forward to continuing to improve D&D for generations to come. No comment section. How unfortunate.
Let's see. What do they mean by voice their truth?
I don't know.
I've always hated that. I hate that line when they say their truth. Like there is only one truth. Whether you believe in that truth or not is a whole other issue.
I disagree. There are many truths, but your truth is informed by the paradigm by which you view the world.
Well, no, there is only one single truth. the Earth is round. That is the objective truth. Yeah, anybody can say can say that the Earth is flat, and that's their truth, but it's not the truth.
We can have this debate later. For now, we have to discuss why orcs are problematic in Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh boy.
This is the last one, and I'm tired, so we want to get through this pretty quickly. What the hell? Oh, I guess that's...
I don't have that article. Can you send me a link?
Sure. Am I not sharing my screen with you anymore?
Yeah, I can see it. It's very small.
Oh, okay.
You have it
Hold on.
you have it crunched all the way up.
Sent.
All right.
I'm gonna stop sharing my screen with you, since you can read along with me.
Oh god. Why orcs are problematic in Dungeons and Dragons? Oh Christ. This is gonna be
By
fun.
Christian Hoffer.
Is that a name I should know?
I don't know. A 2016 passage from a Dungeons and Dragons rulebook has fans once again talking about a long-standing problem with how orcs are depicted in the tabletop game and other pieces of fantasy lore. Earlier today,
Okay.
the term orc started trending on Twitter in the United States as D&D fantasy fans debated the issues surrounding a classic fantasy creature.
Or
The
you mean one douchebag posted a bunch of pictures. It's like, hey, this is racist. I believe that's how it actually started. Like it's like one guy
We're about to
posted
read. We're about to find out.
Oh, oh god. And they mentioned Tolkien. Oh man.
The conversation started when Quinn Welsh Wilson criticized a passage found in Volo's Guide to Monsters that noted that orc could only develop a limited capacity for empathy, love, and compassion.
Well, they're not humans. They're a whole other species.
Yeah, they're a whole other species. B, they're bio. They're a whole other species, which means their biological functions and like, for example, lizardmen. Lizardmen in D&D, in actual D&D lore, cannot feel empathy. They feel no emotions. They have two emotions, fear and rage, and even then, they experience those emotions tangentially. They realize that they should be afraid of something that could kill them. They understand the concept that, oh, this is a thing this is dangerous, therefore I should be afraid of it. But they don't understand, they don't actually feel fear. They don't know what love and empathy and compassion are. Like that's not that's not like that's how they are. They are like natural basic they are naturally sociopathic, I guess, would be the best way to describe lizardmen. They don't actually feel anything. They don't feel anything. They don't feel love. They don't feel compassion. They are driven by the need to survive. That's it. And if something interferes with that, for example, a predator comes into their home, they understand that this is a danger, therefore I should run. Therefore I should fight, or therefore X. Here is new stimulus, therefore X. So having a differing species than from humans, having a limited capacity or no capacity for empathy, love, and compassion is not racist. It's simply a different species with different biological processes, or even hell, a different society.
Yeah,
That
up.
I think that's you.
Okay.
I think that's you. That might be your internet, because I'm fine. Having different cultural influences on them. Continuing on, Welsh Wilson prefaced their post with a casual racism trigger warning. Do you want to drop out of the call real quick, Caesar, and come back in?
Yes.
I'll keep reading. Which set off a heated debate over how orcs and other fantasy
That's
races,
better. Better.
all right, are depicted in modern fantasy tales. Okay.
Okay, let's see. A casual racism trigger warning, which set off it.
Yeah,
Okay, they're just. I mean, they're monsters. They're a monster race. So what? They're not. It's not. They're not human. They're not elves. They are their own species.
but
They're,
even
they're
still, the
the
elves
rules.
by
The rules that apply to them all depends on whoever's creating the lore. They can do what they want to them.
yeah, the elves' biological processes are vastly different from humans, and nobody calls them a racist stereotype, and nobody seems to take them as a racist stereotype. Like, I mean, elves literally don't sleep ever. They don't sleep. Lore, the D&D lore, or the official D&D lore, tells us elves do not sleep. They trance. They trance because they trance, and even then, that's not sleep for them. They just basically go back through memories of how to do. They go back through their memories. That's it. That's how elves live. If they never sleep.
Yeah.
The conversation started when Quinn Welsh Wilson criticized the passage in Volo's Guide to Monsters and noted Orc could only. Oh, I already read that.
Yes, you have.
Preface this weekend's discourse surrounding the orcs isn't exactly a new conversation, but it's one that's always worth discussing. There are two distinctive problematic elements to orcs. One that dates back to the origins in J.R.R. Tolkien's work,
Do
and
not drag Tolkien into this.
and
Whoever
one that
wrote this, please hang yourself. Just please
reflects the
end your life.
world's wider issues surrounding race and ancestral origins in Dungeons and Dragons and similar fantasy games.
I mean, once again, there's a reason why the orcs in Tolkien lore are evil. I mean, they started out as elves that were forcefully turned evil, and then the ones you actually see in Lord of the Rings were literally like pulled out of the ground.
Like
Like they're engineered to be evil.
they're literally corrupt. They're basically demons in Tolkien's work, aren't they?
Might as well be.
They
Might as
might
well
as well
be.
be. They don't get the choice in. They don't have like societal, like cultural influences on them that would make them evil. In examples of orcs and drow, in Tolkien's work, they're basically born from the ground and they are evil. They are evil because they're born from corruption. There's nothing. And so what? All right, let's move on to the next paragraph before I start another rant. While orcs have their roots in goblins, that's absolutely not true. 100% not true.
Well, in Tolkien lore, at least, goblins and orcs are interchangeable.
And the modern concepts of orcs and while orcs have their roots in goblins and other fairy tale creatures, that's not true.
I don't really know where
I don't
orc
really know where
originally came
this is.
from.
Yeah. Where are you getting this? The modern concept of orcs in tabletop games largely originates from Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. As depicted in Lord of the Rings, orcs are inherently evil humanoid creatures. Tolkien described them in a letter as degraded and repulsive versions of the, to Europeans at least lovely Mongol types. Okay,
Um,
Tolkien grew up in what, the 1930s?
before that, I mean, he was. I mean, Lord of the Rings was written back in the 50s, and I think he was an old man by then. I think he was like born in like the late 19th century. Like he was like a young adult in World War I, I think.
Hold on.
Yeah. J.R. Tolkien. See, he was.
1892.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
he
He
wrote
grew.
he grew up in a time when racism was a thing. Like, look, you can't look at Tolkien and say, "Oh, you can't look at Tolkien's creations and say, "Oh, because he mentioned degraded and repulsive versions of the year of the least
Mongol
lovely
people
Mongol types." It's that all orcs in every form of media from now on are all
are.
racism are all
Uh,
racist.
so apparently, by this logic, that means that orcs are not allegories for black people; they're allegories for Asian people.
Yeah,
So,
that's true. And
I
even
guess
then,
so. Yeah, I guess any black people saying that orcs are allegories for you, fuck off.
and even
They're
then,
Asians should be offended.
I doubt Tolkien was an intense student of history at the time. But even still,
He was. I mean, yeah. I mean, like
but even
the
still,
bat
he
battle for Minas Tirith was based on the siege of Constantinople.
like we know a lot more than knew that about the Mongol Empire and history than we do now, than we did then. And
I
like
mean,
he
then
he he was
yeah,
most likely working off the idea that the Mongol Empire was a bunch of horsemen and raiders that
I
came
mean,
in, destroyed everything, and left.
not wrong. But anyway, yeah. Besides, what's like the context behind Mongol? Like, is he trying to say Mongol in a derogatory way? Is it like trying to describe all Mongol people derogatorily? Because he does say least lovely.
Like, yeah, what does he mean? Least lovely.
Like that would mean like the worst of the Mongol people,
And what's with this
which
quote?
would be
What's
raiders
with
and
this
pillagers.
two Europeans thing? Is that an insert from the author into the quote? Because you
I
can't
get.
alter a historical quote like that and pretend it like you have inserted meaning into a historical quote where it doesn't need to be. Like if the quote is degraded and repulsive versions of the least lovely Mongol types, then you should be able to take that quote, put it in your article, and defend it and say, hey, this is why orcs are racist now, without the two Europeans comment. Like, you don't need this insert. And the fact that you put it in here implies motivation on Tolkien. It forces malicious it forces maliciousness on Tolkien. Whether whether malice was intended or not, with Tolkien actually writing this, is irrelevant now because you, the author of the article, have put this two Europeans in here in the mid sentence. It's meaning now I have to assume that Tolkien was actually being malicious. Coupled with the fact that Tolkien depicted the entire cultures as being representative of good or evil, many viewed Orcs as a reflection of the other, a philosophical concept used to paint entire cultures as being somehow inferior or evil because they were different.
I mean, once again, orcs are a monster race. They're not people. They're not like humans.
In Tolkien's work, they're literally spawned of evil.
Yeah.
Like
I,
they so what? Tolkien presents a basic battle of good and evil. Well, there's nothing wrong with that.
mhm.
Like the elves are good but arrogant and haughty. He the dwarves are good but greedy.
Yeah. I mean,
The
yes.
humans are good but corruptible.
Yeah, well, even then, with Lord of the Rings, there are even humans that join Sauron.
Yeah, the
Like they're
hobbits the hobbits are
they're more
good but lazy. He not driven to adventure, not driven to action easily either. So if we're going to attempt to pigeonhole races into these, all right. So the hobbits are Mexican because
okay.
they're lazy and they eat a lot. Um, the dwarves have to be African. They're black people.
Why?
I don't know. I'm just assigning shit.
Okay.
The elves are Asians,
Yeah,
and
that makes
and the
sense.
or and the orcs are Africans as well. Anyway, but yeah, like you're literally searching for racism at this point. Now Tolkien noted in other letters that orcs were not meant to be representative of a particular culture of people and that orcs could be found on both sides of any conflict along with genuinely good people. However, this depiction of orc culture
Wait, hold on. Tolkien noted in other letters at once that orcs were not meant to. Okay, so you just very contradicted the very previous paragraph right there, where Tolkien applies more context with orcs.
doesn't matter. There's a however,
Oh
which is
Christ.
basically a fancy but. So basically, this entire sentence might as well not exist. The only reason he put this in here is to pretend like, hey, I know Tolkien said like orcs are not meant to be depictions of a specific race. That doesn't matter though because ideology, word salad, blah 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 blah. Because my religion says racism is everywhere. However, there's your but. His depiction of orc culture as a monolithic society of evil, human-like creatures became a standard
They're
element in epic fantasy. What?
well, they're elf-like. Technically, they're actually elf-like, not human-like.
His depiction of orc culture as a monolithic society of evil, human-like creatures what the fuck? Is there a sentence missing?
However, his depiction of orc culture as a monolithic a society of evil human-like creatures became a standard in epic fantasy. Okay, I get what he's
Oh,
saying.
okay. Okay. I was reading that weirdly and like I thought this comma was a period, I think.
Nah. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, and even then, so what? I mean, once again, orcs are monsters, but
Yeah.
not all fantasy series do that. Like Warcraft and Elder Scrolls, once again.
Over time, various artists and authors have used elements of various real-world non-European cultures when depicting orcs in books and other media,
Oh
thus
no,
solidifying the
big picture.
idea that were a reflection of non-European races, which is
Oh god.
incredibly problematic.
I
What?
mean, which fantasy series are saying that? And if
Yeah,
then, and even if then, so what?
yeah,
It's not inherently racist to base it off of different cultures.
no kidding. Like, okay,
Like, is it
example?
is
Can you give an example?
like okay, like isn't like did you ever watch Code Geass?
Yes.
Okay, so I haven't watched it, but isn't like the empire that Lelouch is a part of that Lelouch lives in is like an allegory for the United States?
No, they're an allegory for the British Empire.
Okay. So by that logic, would this also be an example of Japanese people being racist or xenophobic by basing a fictional country off of a real world one that's not Asian?
Yes.
You all right over there?
Yeah, I'm fine.
You just went silent for a few seconds.
I know. Like I said, I'm tired, and I've had 3 twisted teas in approximately like 30 minutes. So
Oh, we're almost done.
they're starting to work through. So the idea that orcs were a reflection of non-European races. Okay, what fantasy series? Name one. You you got plenty of examples.
I mean,
Like
I don't know. Like I said, all I can think.
there are thousands of fantasy books that come out every year. Or you could easily give just some obscure example that nobody's heard of before.
Yeah, and buy mine when it comes out.
While the above couple of paragraphs only summarizes why many people take issue with the depiction of orcs in
Yeah.
general,
Who's many? Who's many?
who is this many? So far, I've only seen you mention one guy in a vague and vaguely described fantasy series as pigeonholing orcs into non-European cultures, into non-European races.
Let's see. It okay. It all. Let's see. Yeah, why many people take issue with the depiction of orcs general. It also touches on why many people dislike how Dungeons and Dragons and other fantasy tabletop games deal with race in general. Who? Who's saying this?
Who is saying this? Name.
I
Seriously, is it
as far
just you, Christian? Do you have a
as,
problem with how orcs are depicted in Dungeons and Dragons?
as far as I can tell, the biggest criticism that comes towards D&D is that it's satanic.
Yeah,
But
like
that's a whole other can of
I mean,
worms.
like there are various criticisms of the game mechanics in general, or stuff like that. But that's like that's by and large stuff DMs can decide to ignore. For example, people don't like the inspiration system. If you don't like the inspiration system, don't use it. If you don't like how combat works, rework it. If you don't like work you there are 4 other editions for you to work in. If you
Oh
don't
god.
like
Oh god. I just read on ahead. Oh god. He's gonna talk about the rate, all the different the race attributes. Oh god. Oh, keep going. Keep talking.
Dungeons, Dragons, and many other fantasy games tend to describe races as monolithic entities, these that all share the same physical characteristics and cultural beliefs. Yeah, because they're baseline. Like literally everything you read in a player's handbook or Volo's Guide to Monsters or anything else is absolute baseline because you, the dungeon master or the storyteller or the player, is supposed to take on these things and say, "Well, this is a baseline, but I don't necessarily like the baseline, so I'm going to make my own thing." Or say, "I like the baseline, but here's something interesting." For example, I came up with an elf character concept that because they trance and see all these things, that he that the elf basically grew up seeing elf heaven and saying, "Fuck this guy. This motherfucker locked us out for 100,000 for guy basically locked us out of out of heaven for millennia, for several millennia over a hissy fit." Like the he basically looks at it like the god of the elves is throwing a hissy fit because of because he didn't like that fact that he was stuck in a form, in a singular form. That's it. That's how he looked at it. Because that's interesting. That says, "Oh, here's the baseline elf." Well, an elf look at it like why wouldn't one elf look at it like, "Oh, yeah, fuck you. Fuck off. I don't want to be a part of y'all's. I don't want to be a part of y'all's shit." Why would I want that? Why would I want to please a god that literally punished us because of his own petty reasons? Right? And that's a lot of elf society. It's like, "Oh, we seek to be perfect elves, so our god will let us back into a heaven." It's like, fuck you, no. Why would I want that? Why would I want something that I have earned in my various reincarnations? Because elves reincarnate. They don't die. They don't die and get new souls. They reincarnate. Like, why wouldn't an elf choose to not follow like choose to look at it like that? That's an interesting twist on the baseline. And you can have various, and again, physical characteristics can change with various DMs or various this with various DMs. But Dungeons and Dragons gives you the D&D player's handbook and monster manual and stuff give you a baseline or elaborate on descriptions. This is reflected in both the racial attribute scores bonuses that each race gets in D&D, as well as how they are described in passages like the one criticized by Welsh Wilson. Many people see games like Dungeons and Dragons as codifying and normalizing the use of racial stereotypes.
Nobody see. No, I've never heard anybody say that.
I've never heard anybody say that either. And while yes, certain cultural aspects, for example, well, in I think fourth edition, it's either in fourth edition or it's either in third edition or Pathfinder. There's an entire there's an entire like source book based on East Asian based on like samurai, like like feudal Japanese culture. There are monsters, there are classes like samurai and stuff like the that's not a normalizing the use of racial stereotypes as if it's a negative is totally incorrect. It's exposing people to cultures which they may or may not have ever experienced, which leads to both racist situations in the game table and encourages racist attitudes getting adopted by some players. How?
It's just a game. It's just a fucking game.
Provide example.
Uh,
Provide to me an example. Provide to me an example
racist.
of a
Encourage
player
racism.
or
This is yeah. This is like the whole. It's like this is things. It's like the whole think of the children kind of mentality.
yeah, it
It
is.
encourages racist attitudes getting adopted by some players because my character likes to bully gnomes. That means I'm going to pick on. That means I'm going to go pick on Asian people.
Or
It's
how or your character is genuinely racist against orcs, which would be an interesting character, by the way. Uh, like orcs
yeah,
raided an orc tribe raided and destroyed your village and killed everyone you knew and loved, so you hate them. And one of the members of your party is a half orc. So you the player
I
are
half hate
natural
you.
like are racist against you the player, the character is racist against that player. You don't like them. You don't
Yeah,
trust them.
yeah.
Like
I've never half hated someone before in my life.
like that's interesting. That's a good character or because it inherently he says I have prejudice, I have justifiable reason for hating this person. Or hell, why not? I've never come across the orcs or drow or anyone else in my life, and I've heard terrible stories about them. So I've come to my own conclusion about them. But I find out that they're not all like that. Behold, that is character development. All right.
Almost done. Okay,
Combine
this is
race
look at.
based
Let's see.
strategies. Okay, hold on. I just lost my place in my rant.
It's like, for instance, a player using the orc race found in Vola's
For
guide.
instance, a player using the Orc race found in Golar's Guide to Monsters means they take a -1 penalty to their intelligence score, which means the
Yes,
smartest level 1 Orc will always be less intelligent than the smartest level 1 human.
yes, orcs are stupid. Move on.
Yes. Yes.
They're less
Because
intelligent. They're not the same species.
because
Chimps
A
are less intelligent than
because
people.
A, they're not the same species, but B, Orcs don't value intelligence. Not as much as humans do, not as much as elves do, not as much as some other races do. Some other races do. For example, oh, I can't remember what race it is. It's either halflings or nubs. They get a they get a +1 to they get a +1 to their intelligence.
Like, yeah, there
So
are
the level so
other races.
these so a level 1 gnome is always going to be smarter than a level 1 human. But I'll tell you what, the level 1 orc will always be stronger than the level 1 human.
Yep, it's always the advantages and disadvantages.
And even then, we don't know that. That's not necessarily true. The person playing the level 1 orc could have fucking rolled an 18. While the level 1 human could have rolled an 18 and be playing an orc wizard. While the level 1 human could be playing a rogue, or not a rogue. Fuck, a fighter or a barbarian. So they don't need to put their highest thing in intelligence. It's saying this as a general purpose, saying that the smartest level 1 orc will be dumber than the smartest level 1 human is absolutely not true. It depends on what class they're playing, how they rolled, how the players rolled them, how they distributed their stats. There's so many things that come with this sort of thing. But if we were to take this at face value and say, oh, humans get a +1 to everything, therefore they always start with an intelligence of 1, meanwhile orcs don't get an intelligence of 1, but then you look at, because they don't have a +1 to intelligence, well then the only other race that starts on equal footing to humans as as baseline intelligent is a gnome. Everyone else has a 0 in intelligence. That is absolutely This is absolutely the dumbest example ever,
All
because
right. Well,
it's
it just
very
gets
clearly from someone who's never played D&D before.
it gets dumber with the next sentence.
When translated to real-world discussions about races and cultures, it can be easily argued that this pushes an incredibly racist and outdated viewpoint. To
Okay,
what race?
okay. Hold on. Wait, let me talk. Okay. If you think if okay, thinking orcs or if you believe that orcs are stupid and this translates and this makes the player want to start discriminating against minorities because he discriminates against races in D&D, that says more about the player than it does the game. It's not the game's fault that the player is a shitty person.
Further, to what race? If you are saying orcs are a parallel to black people because of how they are described, that's not me. That's not me, the DM or the player, or reading into that passage. That's you. That's on you. Why do we need to punish ourselves because you feel guilty about your or racism? Like, that's always my want. I've always wanted to question these people about. Like, you act like black people can't achieve on their own. Can't achieve on their own because of structural racism, but why do I but I believe they can. So why do I have to feel guilty because you don't believe black people can achieve on because you don't believe black people are smart enough, hardworking, are smart or hardworking enough to achieve success.
Well, they believe in systematic oppression. They believe that society will always weigh black people down, even if there isn't evidence to prove otherwise. Cough,
Anyway,
cough, Barack Obama, cough.
moving on to the second to last paragraph. Thank God.
Yep, it's almost over. We got this.
I kind of want to read through the comment section.
Oh God. Okay,
Of
we can
course,
do
the
this.
common other side to all this is that orcs, dwarves, elves, and other fantasy races aren't real, and they aren't meant to be representative of human
Hey,
cultures or races.
oh,
But
that renders your entire article invalid. Then.
yeah,
It's, okay,
but the
it's
very
your entire your.
hold on.
Okay, fine.
He's going to try and defend his article, his statements. He's going to try and prop this up on a stick. Because
Oh
the very
Christ.
nature of Dungeons and Dragons as a game blurs the line between reality and fiction. What? Hold
How
on.
does it blur? It's a game,
What? Wait. What? Blurs the lines between reality and fiction.
but it's a
What do
game.
you mean blurs the lines between reality and fiction? Is there some kind of Dungeons and Dragons in VR where we can play, where we can literally play and embody the avatars of our characters and shit? Is that something that can happen among rich people? Like, seriously? Really? Blurs the lines between reality and fiction.
It's basically a video game, but it's on a but it's on a table. It's the same concept.
While you're meant to step into a fictional character's role in Dungeons and Dragons, it still gives agency to the player by assuming that a character is both unique and is capable of making its own choices. Yes, because if you are playing an RPG and all your choices are taken away from you because the story goes in a certain direction, that's pretty fucking boring. Why did I go through the effort of creating this character, making a unique backstory, and a unique mentality of approaching certain obstacles in the game for the DM to basically say, "Oh, your backstory and unique player character means nothing. You're going to do this because this because this." And thus it's problematic to assume that a creature with both self-awareness and intelligence will act a certain way simply because they come from a certain culture or look a certain way. But that's exactly what I can assume. I can assume that someone from a tribal from like from a tribal person from the like depths of the Amazon or the depths of the Congo will not necessarily understand how the fucking iPhone works.
Hell,
Or
even
hell,
old people in our society don't know how an iPhone
or
works.
hell, they why would they understand the complex web of cultures and society of cultural influences on restaurants? Fucking really? You, people act certain way. People, all right. The best example I can tell you of this is because it's a real world example. In Australia, the word cunt is not a slur. The word cunt is
Cunt.
not a bad thing. It People call each other cunts all the time. I mean, because it because it just it's just slang to them. It means like friend or person over there. Or like to Australians, cunt is not a bad word. Or not necessarily a bad word. And
Okay.
that is how they act. They use the word cunt very liberally in Australia and even in Britain. It's sort of caught on as a worse version of bitch. But that's That's influence. That's the influence of culture. So I can look at someone, so I can say that as a creature of both self-awareness and intelligence, I act a certain way because I come from a certain culture, or from a certain culture. Final paragraph.
Let's do this.
While Dungeons and Dragons and wider fantasy genre has often struggled with these monolithic stereotypes, it would be
No, it
noted
hasn't.
that two of Dungeons and Dragons' more recent sourcebooks have offered players alternative rules for orcs that don't require them to take a racial penalty to intelligence, and don't have a natural bloodlust or underlying rage. But while these options remain, this weekend's discussions shows that there's still much progress needed.
No, there isn't. Fuck off. Please, just just OD on your meds. Just stop. Chop your fingers off. Don't be a journalist. Just fuck off.
All right,
This is
so
this is
top comment.
yeah. Shit like this has made me reevaluate my stance on gatekeeping. I used to be strongly opposed to gatekeeping, but now I think, you know what? Fuck it. Keep these people out of your fandom. Gatekeep your fandom. Okay, what does okay.
Our top comment. Your arguments are unconvincing.
Thank God the comment section's not a big circle jerk. Let's see. I am loving these comments where people are willfully admitting that their poor reading comprehension skills. These posts are popcorn worthy. If you look at orcs and see black people, that says a lot more about you than
Than it
anyone
does
else.
anyone else. Check yourself before you wreck yourself. The
The,
smartest
the,
level 1 orc will always be left says you racist. Just where you see a dumb orc, I see a doctor and an engineer or a scientist. You have to be a special kind of stupid to say orcs are meant to be black people. This is a fantasy game. Stop trying to get attention. Are you really so short of content that you have to make an article on how a fictional race is problematic? Grow up.
oh boy, here's a long one. Yeah.
Halloween. Halloween
Yeah.
DM. Good grief. This guy's understanding of D&D is so off base. It's more like he actually hates the game and is just picking things to pick because he can spin it to sound bad. His example of the orc is not just pathetic but manipulative and deceptive. He's not mentioning how that the orc is not a playable race without DM approval, has several racial abilities he gets from level 1 more than compensate for the smartest orc not being as smart as the smartest human. He's also leaving out that orcs get a +2 to strength and versus human the +1 bonus. This thus will always be stronger than the strongest human at level 1 and almost assuredly stronger than the smartest human. Enough of the deceptive whine fest about your perceived shortcomings of D&D. Your article about D&D Align system is equally inaccurate and misleading. You want an honest debate about racial abilities of various species, human, orc, minotaur, etc.? Bring it on, but don't leave out the relevant facts and whine about someone's shortcomings that's not actually a shortcoming or that's some sign of racism because one species has different abilities than a different one. May as well be griping that eagles aren't as smart as humans, but darn if they can't fly, or don't have the best eyesight on the planet.
Damn. Yeah, savagery. I'm actually surprised these comments are even here. I kind of figured comicbook.com would be one of those websites that just that deliberately filters out comments.
They probably do. Well, I agree. Well, I think orcs and humans are alike. Can't humans alike can agree goblins are shifty, lazy thieves, every last one, and they are terrible drivers.
Yeah.
Here's another long one. Just read your article about orcs, and it's honestly the stupidest thing I've ever read. As you pointed out, it's a fantasy game. The -1 is made as an in-game mechanic to balance out the positive racial features that boost the race in other ways. Thus, a human may be smarter, but an orc will be tougher. Most of the extreme racism is actually religiously motivated. Also, sort of different it's sort of different than the racism on Earth because they're actually a different race. If the game said black humans have different stats than white humans or Asian humans, then we can talk about racism in a fantasy game.
Well, that actually, that comment section made this whole video for me.
Have you also considered racism of having evil chromatic dragons contrary to good metallic ones? And white dragons being the dumbest, weakest brutes of all true dragons? Or, well, should we extend considerations to the lizard folk who actually use only use only lizard brains for social interactions? Or shall we debate how it's unfair between celestials and fiends? Or how bad is it to contribute to mind flayer genocide by not being taken over by their tadpoles? Speaking of which, Turl's XCOM intercept did quite well intercepting a mind flayer spelljammer, but the ground task force had a lot to be desired. So yeah, this comment section is awesome.
All right, looks like there's at least one. There's one from the Wolf Man who seems to be sucking up to the writer.
Yeah.
Let's check. Let's see here. Very interesting piece, Christian, especially for those who took the time to read it instead of angrily lashing out at the headline. Because how dare their fantasy game possibly have any perceived shortcomings? And
Let's see.
and he has two replies. I also found the article interesting, but clicked on the comments because I was expected it to be a dumpster fire. Lo and behold. And then
So it's
here's
lashing
Halloween.
out
Here,
and
wait. Here's Halloween. Here's Halloween DM again. Oh, sorry. Go on.
so it's lashing out and dumpster fire if people don't like the absurd stuff this guy writes. Anyone who has done more than casually read D&D books looking for something to fit their ridiculous SJW woke lib etc. Take your pick ideas can put any significant amount of time into playing the game knows that this guy's full of crap. Full of crap. When it comes to D&D, it's not possible for him to be more wrong about it than he already is.
And the
Wolfman
Wolfman.
has responses with laughter,
Ha
but
ha ha ha.
he didn't answer the question.
Yeah, it's like it makes me think of that Whoa Jack where it's a crying face wearing a smug mask
Exactly.
where like ha 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 ha. It's like how dare you. I mean, yeah, he's right. That like if that's your response is just a ha 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 to what contradicts your own point, then that just means you've lost. It's like you're just trying to cover up by trying to act like you're the one on top. Yeah, just eh. Oh Halloween DM,
Here's
you are
another
awesome.
here's another positive one. In before the aggravated white guy gamer contingent does the 4chan thing,
Oh good.
the author is spot on. I'm a lifelong D&D player, and I have long felt the way the game deals with race is problematic. Deterministic restrictions rob characters of their full humanity.
They're
But
not
they're not
humans.
human.
And here's a response. What do you mean? You can't be robbed of humanity if you were never human to begin with. The term race in this game is not even the right word for these characters. We are not talking about different races of human, we are talking about different species. Different species of birds have different attributes that help them do some things better than others and some things worse than others. You could consider D&D characters to be different species of humanoids. That's why I don't like using the words humanoid, mankind, humankind, etc. In the games that I DM. Humans shouldn't be used as the origin of any classifying term for a world controlled by a bunch of different species of people.
Humanity, orcs. What? I don't.
What?
I guess Halloween DM saying point is like saying humanity led to orcs.
Uh, Well, that was a terrible article you showed me, Clayton. Is this
Yeah,
is it revenge for making you watch Renegade Cut last time?
I think we'll go back to Renegade Cut at some point.
Oh yes. You see that EFAP actually covered his Ghostbusters video today?
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, and I was gonna say also the day after we did our video, PSA Sitch did one on Renegade Cut's Forrest Gump video.
oh
That
god,
shit.
he covered Forrest Gump?
Oh God, yes. Well, don't watch the Renegade Cut video. Watch the PSA Sitch's response. It's on his Undaily channel.
Hmm.
It is a really 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 bad take.
Anyway,
Like okay, yeah, like okay, so
we'll look at it later.
yeah, okay,
Anyway, I
okay,
am tired. It is 11 o'clock and I wish to go to sleep.
all right, and I will respect your decision.
So, as for so oh, thank you all for getting this far. If you got this far, thank you so much. Um, do remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I do actually read all the comments and I try to reply where I can.
And be sure to join our Discord.
Yeah, to be sure to join our Discord. I have a couple of things that I'm thinking about throwing in there. See how they pan out. I do need to do some research. As for I mentioned this in the Where's the New Episode update video. Oh, but I am planning to do a review, like an actual like edited and captured review of Metro Exodus. This I promised by the end of June. It doesn't look like that's gonna happen. I'm not finished scripting. It's taking me a little bit longer than expected to script out the entire video. Oh, so look for that early to mid July, hopefully.
All
And
right,
unlike the series I did in December, which I realized as I was going on I would say the same thing. This will not I will not be abandoning this project.
all right, sounds fun.
Yep.
Well, I'll see you around, Clayton.
Yep.